or Homi Bhabha, was a pioneering Indian nuclear physicist who played a crucial role in the development of India's nuclear program. He was born on the 30th of October 1909 in Bombay. Bhabha's contribution to nuclear physics and his leadership in India's scientific community earned him widespread recognition both nationally and internationally. Bhabha's interest in physics led him to pursue studies in Cambridge, where he completed his doctoral research in theoretical physics under the supervision of Nobel laureate Niels Bohr. His work contributed significantly to the understanding of cosmic rays and electron-positron scattering, returning to India in the late 1930s. Bhabha played a pivotal role in establishing India's nuclear research program. He founded the Tata Institute of Fundamental Research in 1945, which became a cornerstone of scientific research in India. Bhabha's vision and leadership laid the groundwork for India's nuclear energy program, culminating in the establishment of the Atomic Energy Commission of India in 1948, of which he became the first chairman. Despite his scientific achievements, Bhabha's life was cut short by a tragic plane crash on the 24th of January 1966. He was aboard the Air India Flight 101, which crashed near Mont Blanc, while en route from Mumbai to New York via Geneva. The crash claimed the lives of all 117 passengers and crew on board. Well, we're reopening this conversation today yet again, as there are theories surrounding Bhabha's death that have persisted over the years, with some speculating about the possible involvement of external forces, including the CIA. However, there is no concrete evidence that has been able to establish the cause, and official investigations have attributed the crash to adverse weather conditions and human error. Now, while Bhabha's untimely death was undoubtedly a loss to the scientific community, his legacy lives on through his contributions to nuclear physics and his role in shaping India's scientific endeavors. He remains a revered figure in Indian science and a symbol of the country's pursuit of excellence in scientific research and innovation. Meanwhile, we reopen this conversation again today on NewsX to understand the depth of the matter and who actually was behind this. Joining us at this point is Group Captain V.N. Jha, former Joint Director DRDO. We also have Pradeep Kapoor, former ambassador, joining us live. Adit Kothari, international affairs expert, is live with us. Gautam Mukherjee, senior journalist, also is joining the broadcast. Let me begin with you first, Group Captain Jha, on what you made of this mysterious death of Homi Bhabha, his pioneering contributions, and whether you believe there was more to this incident than meets the eye.
Very good evening, Uday. I think on your channel, we have discussed this earlier also. You know, there was a period when the US was the sole superpower, and in any nation, whatever used to happen, either the politically or on the matters of defense or research or whatever, people used to say CIA possibly wanted it that way. No, those were the days. So there is nothing for me to circumspect at this stage. What had happened, only the investigation that followed would have had something to say. But you know, there is one thing that you, as well as the entire nation, must know on the crucial scientific project. When we, the scientists, handle a crucial scientific project, it doesn't come out of the blue. There is some background of it which is already known to me, which is already known to at least a small scientific community of my lab, onto which I am dwelling such a crucial project, such a critical project, which may have historical significance in the future. And I am not alone. There are two people who are in the knowledge of the entire thing. One is the program director, another is the project director. These two are the people who are in the knowledge of, know-how of the entirety of the project, what has happened there. And then we have project leaders of a smaller system, smaller subsystem, who are handling the project. We also have a brainstorming session before we start the project, before we give the shape, before we draw the specifications. We have usually a brainstorming session in which we invariably dwell upon, step ahead, add values to our previous project, previous skills, previous programs onto which that critical project has to be embedded upon. So usually this is the minimum of a crucial project that happens. Now, if Homi Bhabha was leading the project, there would have been another person who would have been in the entire know-how of exactly what we are going to happen. I mean, to say that the entire nuclear fission reaction, how it happens, how you trap all the energies, how you initiate various subsystems, how you integrate them, how you time it out for the controlled fission to happen. All the things would have been discussed, and there would have been another person. So eliminating Homi Bhabha alone may not serve the purpose of the CIA, and CIA is a big agency. Eliminating one person out of a team doesn't make any sense. But I can't say for sure that he was not or he was. It is only the circumspect or speculations that we will be indulging upon. But we can't rule out, we can't establish. I think you are quoting right now something what is going on the Facebook. I have heard today that something has come on the Facebook. We should not go with this. If it suits some of the narratives in the present political arena of the things happening either in India or in US or the world over, it may start on that way. But we will not like to go that way. I will say as a scientist that we are important person, that project team, especially the program director and the project director, they are the important pillars of that project. They will be in the complete know-how. And if Homi Bhabha, for some reason, would have been the lone person having all the technological know-how, that would have been bad for the program, because there is always another person. So I will not like to circumspect or speculate at this juncture. I would say that, well, if we are in the darkness, whatever informations come, we should be slightly careful in going the way how the narrative has been built. Uday.
All right, let me take that to Pradeep Kapoor. Pradeep Kapoor, what do you make of these questions once again emerging about Homi Bhabha's death? Do you believe it was mysterious? Do you believe a reinvestigation is needed?
Well, from the readings which I have come across in the recent past, in the Western world particularly, and the books which have been recently released, including by some CIA officials, former CIA officials, where they seem to have taken credit for this blast and for sort of destroying the plane on the Alps, and sort of gloated about it. It puts a big question mark, because at the same time that this happened, there were a lot of other incidents which had happened, like the famous Nambi Narayan case, and other scientists also sort of, getting impacted and accusations being leveled against them, or their reputations being sullied, or they're just dying unnatural deaths. So to that extent, if it suited some countries in the world to make sure that India would not progress down that path, they may have resorted to all sorts of means, including this blast on the plane. So I would suggest that this requires definitely a very serious look again, investigation, and understanding in view of all the new material which has come into light, particularly. So but beyond that, what I also feel is that some international monument proposed by India, and even if necessary funded by India, should be put up on the Alps, where it can be said that this was a point where this famous scientist died due to unnatural cause, so that it keeps on bringing the attention of the world as to something unnatural had happened, and that these sort of things in the future should not be taken lightly. So from that perspective, I think it'll be very useful to put a monument there, put a sort of a memorial there. Also, similarly for the Kanishka blast, we need to put memorials in Canada, in Japan, near Ireland, where the blast happened, in India, everywhere, so that the global attention continues to be focused on that. So I am going to be leaving the talk now, because I've got to participate in a book launch. Our latest book on COVID is being released in a few minutes from now. So they're waiting for me to join there. I'm so sorry about not being able to continue today, Uday, but
Okay.
I do look forward to
Yes.
revisiting.
Okay. Adit Kothari, come in here. Adit, come in here. On your take on this, on this mystery, which obviously has still not been solved regarding Homi Bhabha's death. And what do you believe caused it? What do you believe of his life story, his immense contributions?
No, thanks for having me. I think Captain Jha essentially gave a very good perspective about one person being eliminated doesn't mean the entire nuclear program essentially gets dismantled. But the point I don't think was to dismantle it. The point was to essentially derail it, and that's what the conversations with Crow is essentially hinting at as well. And that's just not one of the issues. We look at CIA operations. I mean, who was Robert Crowley at the end of the day? He was the operations director of covert missions. So he has been responsible on a number of such covert missions where they have been, where he was understood to be very closely monitoring the Soviet relations with the other nations. The 60s eras was typically a very, very pivotal era for both United States and India. United States was trying to thwart any attempts by the Soviets to gain access to warm water ports. India, being one of the closest allies of the Soviets at that point, was providing them that access. Pakistan, being the buffer state between India and the Soviets, was being threatened by an increasingly militarizing India. And at the same time, the nuclear program, or any successes of the nuclear program, or even a mention of India being able to gain atomic energy and being able to weaponize that, was threat enough for the US to essentially eliminate Homi Bhabha. So I think the conversations with Crow as a book needs to be taken at face value. There is more than definitely that meets the eye, because at the end of the day, who was the guy who was essentially providing this kind of information? He was the operations director. Today, we are going on a tangent, believing a story that Washington Post has essentially released on the basis of what undisclosed sources have told them, that India's been galvanizing their resources to eliminate a so-called designated terrorist who's been given asylum in the United States, and the world is essentially buying that and having a go at India. Here is a case where you have an official designated director of CIA coming on record and saying that they didn't only take down the scientists, but 13 days before, they had also taken out India's prime minister. And if you look at the kind of derogatory language and the kind of the bigotry that this man essentially espouses, it's absolutely shocking. So I would still be holding the CIA responsible for this on the basis of all the evidences that have been available, and going by the evidences that the government of France has essentially put out with regards to how they see the blast, or they see the site where the debris of the air crash essentially took place. So on the basis of that, I would still hold the CIA at count. Thank you.
Yes, Gautam Mukherjee, come in here. Gautam, on what do you believe led to Homi Bhabha's death? Do you believe there is mystery to it? Do you believe it was natural, or do you believe there is reason to speculate and reinvestigate this now?
Well, if you step back a little from this event, in the Kennedy administration, John Kennedy offered to detonate a nuclear bomb on behalf of India, or to help India detonate a nuclear bomb, because he had information that the Chinese were about to do so. Connected with that was also an offer on the UNSC. Both of these were turned down by Nehru. And at the same time, he initiated his own nuclear program, which was seen by the Americans as something that was really in cahoots with the Soviets. So when it came to Homi Bhabha possibly being killed by the CIA, it's part of this piece where India was seen as a Soviet satellite. So it is quite probable. Today it is not that relevant, but do notice that after Homi Bhabha's declaration that he could have a nuclear bomb in 18 months, nothing was done about it. Till years later, Indira Gandhi detonated a very small bomb and called it something for peaceful purposes. She fudged the whole thing. And it wasn't until Vajpayee finally bit the bullet because Congress hesitated, Narasimha Rao hesitated, and Bajpayee, soon after taking over, within 2 weeks of it, finally detonated several bombs and declared India unilaterally as a nuclear power. So there's a long history to it. Did Homi Bhabha become victim through this? It is quite probable. It is quite probable. In the way things have evolved, it is not that relevant anymore. But is it absurd? No, it isn't absurd. You also look at what is happening in Iran. Iran has had its nuclear scientists routinely killed, perpetually by Israel. And even the latest incident, where in retaliation for the Iranian attack, the Israelis very pointedly destroyed the S-300 cover for the nuclear facilities at Isfahan. So that is a clear-cut statement that, look, you keep this up and we will destroy the whole place all over again. We've done it from the inside, now we'll do it from the outside. What is the purpose of all this? It retards the progress of a nuclear mission. Now, India's stature in Bajpayee's time, certainly now, was very different from India's stature in the 60s. And when the CIA operative called India uppity, that's exactly what they thought of us. That's what they thought of our, speeches, bombastic speeches at the UN, because we had very little by way of wealth or influence, but we did have a lot of moral posturing, which was part and parcel of the Nehru era. Uday.
Yes, indeed. Going back across to Group Captain Jha, just give us a bit of context, Group Captain Jha, over the timing of when this happened and what all Homi Bhabha had achieved and what perhaps was left to be achieved, which was cut short due to his untimely death.
Well, to be frank, Uday, what just now Mr. Mukherjee was mentioning, giving the whole lot of background to not a single event, but any type of event happening, that has to be looked into it. Not that I'm against any investigations. Always welcome. Any investigation which can throw additional lights onto the happenings that might have happened 40 years, 50 years, 60 years back is always welcome. At least people will know what has exactly happened. But, there are possibilities of it having carried out by some third hand, or it happening as a natural process that might have happened. So many of the aircraft accidents have happened, so many blasts have happened. Blasts usually happen because of someone else's doing. But aircraft accidents are common. Mr. Gandhi died after the accident. I'm talking of the younger Gandhi. There were a lot of information that his plane was, tampered with. Controls were tampered with. So when something happens, there are a lot of speculations that happen subsequently, especially to fulfill the narrative that are being carried, especially in the political arena. But we don't belong to the we consider we don't belong to the political arena in the scientific community. We are mostly confined to our task, which may have political significance elsewhere. Usually we are not in that. Maybe the director of the institute where such critical projects are being carried out, he may be in the limelight for political reasons. But we scientists usually isolate ourselves while doing this sort of very critical project. We usually don't even speak to our wives. We don't talk what we are doing in the lab. So such sort of criticality we maintain at our level when we are project directors or program directors or the project leaders handling some particular system. We don't talk to anyone regarding it. But then, espionage is something which does happen off and on that we have been finding out. So people do attempt to try all these things. Just about 3 years back, you might have heard, I mean, we had discussed on your channel how Chinese espionage was happening here in India, where they were trying to trap the people having some background which is not conducive for his image. Such things were happening. So it will continue happening. It was happening in the past. It will happen in the future too. But what I'm just trying to confine myself is, Homi Bhabha, he was exceptional, phenomenal talent of India. Maybe that when so many people in the CIA, they themselves are confessing or trying to do it, project themselves at they might have been one of the hands behind this. Could be possible, but this also could be possible to, it's a book. To sell your book, what all you do, look at the Bollywood movies. For one movie to go hit, what nonsense they carry out. So there is a book which has been written. He wants this book to go all doors, all cupboards, all bookcases. Such things might have happened, but then it is something that I was having just a small child at that time. I can't speculate what would have happened that time. So if government wants to investigate, welcome. There will be additional light, because there would have been already couple of investigations, one by the lab and one by the government of India, which would have been in the shelves of the government of India. So 2 investigations would have already been there. If there is any gap in some narrative somewhere, maybe the government may like to, put those blocks of the informations what was missing from there. But otherwise, beyond this, I wouldn't like to again speculate onto this. I will rather go with the general narrative that what was happening in India in the 60s and 70s, it was being done at the behest of CIA. They wanted to do one PM. That PM they wanted to erect through the political narrative. So every narrative was being formed by CIA, not only in India, any part of the world that you could think of. There will be many people who would be having this sort of ideas of the things happening of those days. I wouldn't like to go along with this. I will still maintain that, look, there is a possibility that it would have been wrong. Homi Bhabha would have been wrong. It is a clear possibility. But then to say it so clearly, those gaps in the informations or the investigations will have to be filled up. Whether after 50 years have gone by, will you be able to go get those pieces of informations? Lot many water has flown over the head. I'm not sure whether you will get it there. But then it's the prerogative of the government of India. If they feel, they may like to go through it.
Yes, because the fact, of course, is that the US is wanting to raise external elements, causing deaths of certain individuals on their soil. Well, there are many who believe that perhaps the CIA was responsible for this. Perhaps there were external elements responsible for Homi Bhabha's death. Surely then that also should be looked at, isn't it, Adit Kothari?
Yeah, so I agree with that. So I think, it's no secret as to what CIA essentially do. They prop up all sorts of regimes and they run their covert operations in that way. Weapons of mass destruction was never ever found in Iraq, and there was a whole war that multiple number of countries were essentially pulled into on the context of that. So that element is always there. And coming back to this particular event that is being played out between India and US in terms of the diplomatic issue, which is being blown out of proportion by various media journalists. I would call them conspiracy theorists, purely because they are hinging on unconfirmed sources and citing unconfirmed sources as their source to essentially quote as to what India would be doing in United States, which is conducting extrajudicial killings. There has never been history of India ever doing or ever indulging in that sort of operations. I mean, as much as I would love to see that kind of reciprocity, India has never been able to execute anything on those dimensions. So which is why, if it's a conspiracy theory, it needs to be treated as a conspiracy theory. And like in the case of Homi Bhabha as well, we should be looking at it holistically, yes, there were, whether the 60s was a troubling time. Yes, it was. India's had two you've had the 1962 debacle with China, and then you've had 1965 with Pakistan, where you've essentially pushed Ayub Khan into this corner and enforcing him and arm twisting him to sign a peace treaty in Tashkent, which was not favorable for both Pakistan and the United States, because they were both close allies, and Pakistan was, as Gautam Da also mentioned, almost a satellite state of the United States in South Asia at that point. Maybe today they're not as close allies as they used to be in the 1960s, but in the 1960s, Pakistan was serving a lot of the US interests in the Indian subcontinent, both on the Western Front and the northern side of Pakistan. On one side, you had
Right.
basically them thwarting the Soviets, and the other side you had India controlling India.
Okay, let's leave the last word to Gautam Mukherjee.
Well, talking of Iraq under Saddam, the story goes that the CIA asked the American ambassador, who was a lady in Iraq, to tell Saddam that it was okay by America if he attacked Kuwait, which traditionally was reckoned before they did the maps in that area as the 19th province of Iraq. So having sort of been reassured that America would not object, he went and invaded Kuwait. The American ambassador was retired, and Saddam was duly humiliated, and that was the first Gulf. As far as Pakistan goes, Zia-ul Haq died in a plane again with the American ambassador. Again, the story goes at the instance of the CIA, because by now he was becoming a sort of messiah, Islamic messiah, and wasn't playing humble servant to the Americans as was desired by them. They set him up, and now he was getting too big for his boots. So the CIA, this is just in our region, but the CIA has been very active in multiple countries all over the world. It has the biggest covert budget in the world. They are in every country, deeply embedded, and therefore, for them to be involved in not only, as they say, regime change, but also in, altering policies and destinies of nations is entirely par for the course. So, if America is going to object to an Indian operative from RAW purportedly trying to pop Panoon on American soil, there is no room for shock and horror.
Okay. My thanks to all of our guests for joining us on this discussion.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.